Good morning. Welcome to Equity Story Monday, the 8th of May. We've got not a bad leading from the US. Before I do that, and I'll talk about some announcements this morning, and we'll go through a couple of things. You've got Equity Story disclaimer in front of you. Of course, every single story we talk about is general advice only, and we are really just talking about the technicals and fundamentals. All right, so I want to just quickly go over what happened on Friday in the US. Of course, Apple, that reported quite well, and we saw, of course, a bit of a rally from the US markets. The Nasdaq and the Dow Jones had a really good sessions after a few sessions that were down, which is a good thing, of course. But at the end of the day, it probably doesn't mean too much at this stage because we've still got those issues we talked about in the background, which is the first of all, the debt ceiling that's coming up in the US, of course. We've got inflation, we've got possible recession, interest rates going up, all the number of things. Now, another thing that's coming up, pretty much like another big risk, that's in the Ukraine war with Russia. And I've heard some reports over last night and the last day or so that the Russians are evacuating the civilians from around the Zaporizhia plant, the nuclear plant, which potentially could mean escalation. Now, if that happens, if something bad happens around that area, you are going to see a major problem, with pretty much everything globally. Yeah, you might see, you see inflation shooting up. You might see coal and some other commodities going all over the shop. You see, the US dollar, it's going to see a lot of issues here. And of course, Europe's probably going to be a problem bigger than Ben-Hur. So, we don't want to see that, of course, but we just got to keep that in mind. We don't want to see any escalation or any issues down there, but it doesn't look great. So we're going to be prepared for that. And of course, we talked about it. I talked about it on the Friday weekly summary, that this could be some left field things. There could be some issues. I'd rather be careful and be on the side of caution, which means taking some profits, looking at taking some money off the table, having some cash on the side, but still not being, completely hiding on the table. So you just never know what's going to happen. I am sitting, nervously and watching what's going to happen next. And of course, the other thing I talked about on Friday was the regional bank. So, but they had a rally on Friday, so that's a good thing. But we'll see what actually happens over the next week. It is going to be another one of those weeks where you're just going to hope, fingers crossed, that nothing bad untoward happens. All right, so let's switch some screens. Let's have a look what's happening. Actually, before I do that, I want to show you. So we're going to go to and switch the screens to right there. Hopefully you can see it. And I've brought in the trading economics. So I want to show you what is actually happening in the commodity space, because, we're obviously looking at some commodity space and we want to make sure that everything is still going well. And gold is, of course, the one that we've been trading. And you got a bit of a come down on the weekend, come down from about 255 back to about 215 to 17. So it had a bit of a pullback on that rally on Friday from the US. But it's still looking pretty good. So just because you might have bought some stocks on Friday, don't panic. It's still looking okay. And if again things happen, escalate in Europe, especially with that nuclear plant, you're probably going to see maybe gold again coming to the fore. So definitely still probably to invest and play the charts, play the technicals in there. Some of the other things had a bit of a rally as well. So you can see crude oil had a bit of a move. Uranium 53.70, but the one that's really troublesome is coal. That's down now to 116.95. So let's have a look at the chart there. It's not looking great. So he had a little bit of a bounce, and now down she goes again, and that looking pretty poor actually, and most likely heading lower. So if I put this on a longer chart, you can see there that little bounce. It's not has been sustained. It didn't quite get to 200. It's now going probably lower, maybe trying to that 150 mark right there. So if you're any cold stocks, possibly time to again look at your positions, see technically where they are at the moment. Let's have a look at what else. Copper is not too bad, but gold. The other one was actually iron ore. I look at that 99.50. So let's look at that chart. it's not looking great. So any FMGs, CAAs, Rios, BHBs, it's probably going to leave a bit of weight on that. And again, I'm going to look at it the weekly so you can have a see. Probably a place I would not want to be in that right now. All right, let's look at some of the trends that we put it from Einstein's. Let's see if there's anything that we like in there quickly. I'm just, there was only one. That was Weebit. That was the only one that was a buy signal I saw from Dave. Some of the other stuff like EVN, like I said, that looked pretty good on Friday. Maybe not so fantastic today, but like I said, it's going to be volatile. Generally speaking, you want that to go up, of course, and hopefully with the gold still above 2,000. If things still, volatile and potentially go south, you're going to see probably good action in gold space. So AGG is another gold space in there. MCC is not the fantastic, not probably one of my favorite. GTK is okay. That looks pretty good. TPG, again, not too bad, probably defensive in a communication space. GMG surprisingly hit a really, really good chart, almost $220. Good story. So possibly, one of the safer stories maybe to play. AGL, again, surprisingly, because the fundamentals haven't been fantastic, looking pretty good there. So overall, good looking chart for sure. Can't deny that. The leisure space, the travel space is actually looking very, very good. You had FLT come up with a pretty good update. That's why it's reflecting quite well on the charts. IHLO, with the other one we talked about, looked pretty good. I saw today an article saying that the whole sector is looking good, especially with the airlines like Qantas can charge whatever they want. So the actual prices of travel has been going up double digits for the last 2 or 3 years. So, they're probably making the best money they've ever made, and maybe over earning in a way. So if you're into Qantas and so on, play it tight, but just be aware. Of course, they're not going to have these conditions forever. It's probably going to moderate over the next couple of years, but for the moment, they are obviously doing very, very well. So you can't deny them. HPA looking okay, not probably the super duper stock for mine. BGA probably not, definitely not mine. SIQ, another one, probably not for me, but it's still looking good on charts. That's why David's putting it on there. That's one look interesting, isn't it? It's above trend, looking quite strong. So maybe one for the higher risk takers out there. SSR mining looking pretty good chart there, really strong candle. So one maybe to have a look at. Let me see a lot else. Black Cat in the gold space, looking okay there. And LLL, which is Leo Lithium in Africa, that looked very good as well in the lithium space. And uranium, funny enough, which had, like again, I told you they had a pretty good chart. But saying that, and it's actually up to there. But saying that, what happens if there's a problem in Zaporizhia nuclear plant? How's that going to affect nuclear sentiment? It's probably not going to look very good because we've seen, back in when Japan had that problem and had a big meltdown of one of the nuclear plants, the uranium share price just tanked, and you know what? No one wanted to know about it for a number of years. So I'm worried. It's just you just never know what's going to happen with this stuff. So you're always going to be wary. You're always going to have to follow the news and see how it's going to affect the markets and how you're going to affect your stocks. Let me see what else you've got. So CSI again, it's looking good, but when you look at what's happening when they're building space in Australia at the moment, it's a little bit weak with interest rates rising. So maybe not the strongest, but the chart looks good. So you can't deny it. All right, so let's flick on to the next thing. So I'm going to look at some announcements this morning and see where we are. So let's have a look at that. And let's look there. And let's start with Westpac. This morning came up with news. Look, at least there's a little bit of a bounce this morning. And again, fairly similar announcements to what we've seen already from NAB and ANZ. Good to see a little bit of a jump today, 2.5%. Actually, let's look at the other two that had a sell-off. But we said a sell-off, but probably opportunity for the long-termers. Look at that. Now it's sort of recovering a little bit back. ANZ again is probably going to look pretty similar. There you go. It's almost back over the trend lines again. So it's, we see the pattern over and over and over again. If you're ever looking for dividend plays, when there's a bit of a sell-off, that's the time to pounce, because there's probably over the next weeks or so, it's going to bounce back to its mean averages like it always does, because the banks are fairly safe, you can say, in Australia. Low risk, but again, it's only for the dividend payers or players out there. So anyone interested, that's the only way I'd probably be looking at it, because it's just not trending at all. All right, let's look at the next one, Talga. I want to look at Talga because it's one of our favorites in the graphite space, but it hasn't been having great time lately. You know, that 150 should have been the last line of defense here. Maybe you can make a case at 142 if you really want to have a look at that long-term type stuff. Today's announcement, you know, it's good and nervous at the same time, because they want to get the environmental permits in Sweden to get processing done for the graphite they've got, right? The problem is they've got some approvals, but there's been some opposition in Sweden. As you know, probably every country, they're going to have some opposition. So it's gone to courts. The last now, I suppose, date you're going to have to looking at is in late June. That's going to be your last, I suppose, to see whether you can get over the line and see if you can get those approvals. Because the court case is going, and they're going to make a decision in June whether they're going to get whole permits and, of course, get them to mine and get them to a process. So watch for Talga, watch for June. I'm a little bit nervous because you never know, right, how they're going to react. There's obviously environmental groups. There's other groups that are going to be opposing this. Like everywhere else, Australia is the same. Canada is going to be the same. So it's never a done deal. There's going to be something, especially in countries like Sweden, so where they've got a pretty robust process of environmental issues and environmental opposition. So you've got to be playing that as well. Next one is Linus. It's actually good and bad news in a way. I know it's temporary reprieve for Linus, and it's had a bit of a jump, but I think this is an opportunity to possibly take some profits, technically speaking, because it's up to the resistances now. The announcement today for Linus was that they can actually process the lanthanides that they've got in there. That there was huge opposition in Malaysia to it. So basically what they can do it, process it until January, I think, in next year. But it still means that they'll probably have to stop. But it's just given them that extra 6 months maybe to work on their government to see if they can change their mind, if they can do something, or find another avenue to start processing, because it's changed the ball game for them. If they can't process, I don't know what they're going to do, whether they're going to have to move outside of Malaysia, or they just can't process it at all and just do whatever they've been doing previously. It's a little bit complicated. So let's see how that plays out. But it's not looking great, I have to say. And I don't, how that's going to transpire over the next 6 to 7 months. We'll see. However, like I said, if I'm looking at this, I'm probably technically looking at taking my money out and sitting on the sidelines for the moment from Linus. Last one is RDX. And it's come out, of course, surprise, surprise, or not surprise, not surprise, capital raising, right? Of course, I had a strong run. The management would be silly not to take the advantage of this share price wise if they need cash to go and pull the trigger, and they have. And I think 91 cents. So it's pretty much on the trend lines here, which is good. They obviously need money. They've been getting some tailwinds behind them with commercialization of the technology. So a few signings with some of these US health institutions. So it's nice to see. So for the time being, I think it's a good movement, but I still would not be, super, I suppose, bullish on it, because I still want to see bigger contracts. I want to see still more cash flows come through, but at least, they're going to get some cash and hopefully that will put a little bit of, I suppose, support around this 91 cents. All right. So from that, I think I've said enough today. We've got a fairly nervous market. Good start, I know, to the day. Let's just have a look exactly what's just happening on my watch list to see if there's anything moving or anything looks good apart from this. So let's look at BOSS, like we talked about. Look at that. That just actually looked very good. So hopefully you can make a couple of bucks on that, on BOSS. Let me see what else. I looked at SOC. That looked pretty good. You can see that. It's very lightly traded, but looking pretty good on the chart. Weebit Nano. That's the one that had a buy signal, the only one that Dave's put on. And it's had a little bit of a move today, so maybe you can make a couple of bucks on that too. Let me see what else in there. Like I said, Drop Suite's looking all right. That's the one we normally look at because it's part of our portfolio. So that's looking okay. That looks quite bullish. But I think other than that, let's just have a look on ASX. Its XJO is 51 points. That's nice. Overall, good start. Please keep going. Please don't have a Zaporizhzhia nuclear disaster out there. And hopefully we can get through this really tough period what we've got at the moment at the start of May. Thanks very much for joining me, guys. And I'll join you again tomorrow. Cheers.